I'm always very interested by the comments that are put up about my videos. And thank you again. When I put up a video about Mr. Trump and his impending arrest, somebody very wisely added the point, well, look to your own backyard. And they're right. They're absolutely right. But the difference is I think very firmly about absolutes. And if I castigate Mr. Trump, I certainly don't hold back when I'm speaking about Boris Johnson or others. Should we legislate to stop people with a criminal record from holding high public office? Well, it ought to be obvious, and so we shouldn't need legislation. It ought to be the electorate that simply makes that choice. Why would anybody choose a known criminal or a liar? If I call out Mr. Trump, it's not really an attack on Mr. Trump or the Republican cause. It's as equally an attack on those people in the British system or the system in almost any other country who are faced with the corruption of power, the opportunities of power, and so on. Should we have these people in office? This debate is going on in so many different countries. Should people who are facing criminal charges remain in high office? Or are these charges literally trumped up to, excuse the pun, to get people out of power, to get people off the world stage and out of the parliament or the assembly or wherever they're trying to gain a stronghold? Why would we want to be governed by a known liar? Because they're persuasive? And the problem really is that if we start legislating, then a dodgy regime can take advantage of that sort of legislation. So there are cases where the regime was wrong, and countries go through dark patches, and those people who have been imprisoned are then vindicated. Later, the regime collapses. There are some great examples of leaders who have a criminal past. Nelson Mandela is one. Though not quite a leader of his country, Mahatma Gandhi is another. There are many. And there's also many examples of those who currently face serious criminal charges. There's instances of people being elected for office even with criminal charges pending, like Chris Collins, Duncan Hunter of California, Bob Menendez. There's the Attorney General in Texas, Ken Paxton, was it? Jan Forte, who was in Montana, who I think was elected despite being convicted of body shaming a journalist. Maybe part of the issue is how serious these charges actually are. I think a serious charge, like, for example, a minister who was accused of perjury. Actually, Jeffrey Archer was not a minister. Lord Jeffrey Archer was jailed for perjury and has gone back to writing. And in fact, he kept a journal of his time in jail. Jonathan Aitken is another minister in Britain who was jailed. He was a minister in 1992. He was jailed in 1999. The chance of him coming back into political life that's not possible. He's gone on and found a career in the church. But the question hangs over us. If we put legislation in place to make it impossible for somebody who has a criminal record from standing for high office, then it's also possible that people in high office can manipulate that criminal situation, like, for example, in Russia and Putin's Russia, with laws that stop people with a criminal record from standing against him as presidential candidates. People who now have a criminal record, like Alexei Navalny, cannot stand in an election. But what has Alexei Navalny actually done wrong? He seems to be a political prisoner. And I'm sure when the clock ticks forward and the present regime retires from office, Mr. Navalny presumably will be in a position to stand, and maybe that experience of prison will stand him in good stead in an election situation. It's an ambiguous position, and no doubt Mr. Trump will claim that the charges against him have been politically fabricated, or they are politically charged, that he is only facing these charges because of his political position. But we could also say, if you are going to stand for high office, then a higher standard is demanded of you. I don't know, it's up for debate, but I think there are absolutes, and whatever eyebrow I raise over Mr. Trump, I would raise that equally over people in the UK and in other countries, believe me.